Hello, welcome to our exciting episode of this Saturday. This is called to Activism Africa, where we discuss matters global, matters Africa that are of so much importance to us and forging a way forward. My name is Kato Mukasa, your co-host. My other host is Lynda Tilley. Host is Lynda Tilley, who is based in South Africa, and today we shall be introducing our new co-host, Brian Khabeko, who is based in Kenya. Welcome again, Lynda. We are waiting for you to appear on the screen. Of course, we shall also be having Brian Khabeko, and today we are discussing something very, very important. We are looking at the state of humanism in Africa and their way forward. Of course, this is going to be a part one of that discussion. We're going to have a series of conversations around the major topic of concern today, that is humanism in Africa. Welcome again on this very show. Welcome, Lynda, and welcome, Brian Khabeko. And of course, thank you to Dennis for being the administrator that makes everything possible, that makes it possible for you to see us today. Welcome again and get ready for the best show this weekend. We're talking about humanism in Africa. My sister Lynda, welcome. Lynda,
great.
Welcome.
Beautiful, lovely feeling. Goodness. Whatever next.
You're welcome, Lynda. As we wait for Brian Khabeko, I'm welcoming Lynda, who is my number one co-host for this show. Of course, we shall be receiving Brian Khabeko, who is based in Kenya. Lynda Tilley is based in South Africa. And we're going to be talking about humanism in Africa. And of course, I should warn you that we are going to be talking about matters about Africa, matters about humanism. But of course, we shall be inviting other guests from different African countries in the next series, in the next parts, and we shall be discussing issues basically of humanism. We're looking at these organizations, we are looking at the work they do, the challenges they face, and their way forward. So today we are talking about humanism in Africa, and this is an introduction. Lynda, welcome.
Oh my Lord, so bad, terrible.
Lynda, welcome. Hopefully you can hear me. Lynda, can you hear me? Lynda, if you can hear me, just know I can see you. I can see you. Please let us get this one started. And yes, you talk about lighting. Yes, your lighting is not all that the best, but we can see you. Lynda, if you can hear me, we are live. We are live. We are live. Now, as we wait for our co-host Lynda to get ready, of course, all of you know the challenges we have with the network connections and all that. We have Brian Khabeko, who is our new co-host from Kenya. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Kato. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm sorry I haven't joined with the video immediately. I'm waiting for some light before I can turn on my video, but I'll be turning on my video as we go on.
It's okay, Brian. What matters is that voice. As long as we can hear you and as long as you can hear us, we are good to go. Of course, we know we have challenges in connectivity, but we are good to go. Brian, how is Kenya?
Generally, Kenya is not doing so well. We are struggling. We are just trying to recover from recent elections. So the economic sector is not doing so well. Some businesses have closed up. We've had so many companies laying off their workers, and so things are not so well. we are really struggling.
You must be struggling. Of course, I've been following you. I know about the blackout, electricity shortages here and there. Of course, you have
Yeah.
joined a number of countries in a shutdown of the electricity, including South Africa. I wonder, how did you reach at this level of helplessness in Kenya? How did it happen to be? Kenya used to be a very stable country. What happened?
I think this is a systemic issue. It traces back to the previous governments, because I was watching yesterday when the CS in charge of energy was being grilled by the parliament, and the reasons that the CS was giving for the blackout, they were really baby issues. And so the only conclusion I can say as a country, where we've reached as a country, is that we have negligent leaders and people who, let me say, is it deliberate or something of that sort, because they don't even understand the positions that they are holding. You know, when you bring a whole engineer in the parliament and is being questioned about uh, what happened, and he's also telling you that he's unaware, that he needs time to find out what really transpired and what happened. So I think we are just having incompetent leaders in various positions, and that's the only problem. Because if we are talking about electricity, Kenya generates hydroelectric power, although we import some from Uganda and Ethiopia. But whatever we have, it's sustainable. It's enough to sustain as a country. I don't see why we can have a blackout in the whole country for almost 2 days. And
Yes.
during the blackout, there was so much that was lost. We saw people losing lives in hospitals. We saw many companies which deal with perishable goods. They went at losses, and there is no one who has even stepped in to take responsibility or to even account for what happened. So, Kato, it's really amazing, Kenya, and it's not something that we Kenyans are proud of. I think we are we are retrogressing as a country. You can even see our currency against the US dollar. We are really doing bad.
Brian, that said, of course, I know that a top government official at the airport resigned. Was he sacked or resigned because of that?
He was actually sacked.
Was he the one responsible for the blackout?
There was an outrage as to why he was sacked, and some people were really questioning whether he's responsible or not. But from where I stand, I think the minister just okay to sack him, because in as much as he's not responsible for power supply in the country, as an MD, he must ensure that there are measures that have been put in place in scenarios where we have power outage, because we believe that JKIA International Airport should be having automatic generators, such that when power goes off, we have generators that are on standby. But it was really embarrassing that a whole international airport had none that was functional. So as a result, the airport was also affected by the blackout for almost 8 hours. So I
Yes.
think
Mm.
he is part of it. The CS was just right to sack him.
Thank you, Brian. That was an introduction. Of course, Lynda is back now. Lynda, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
Very well, loud and clear. Welcome back, Lynda. And of course, all of you know she's our co-host. Today we are having Brian Khabeko. Will be joining our team on a permanent level as a co-host, of course, so that this show continues. You know, we are not like the dictators in Africa who want to be in power forever. We really
True.
mentor others, and we want to ensure the continuity of this platform. Lynda, how is South Africa doing? Of course, we have power struggles. I mean, electricity for the last 2 months or something like that.
I know, but I mean, considering the fact that South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria are supposed to be the three strongest economies, and Egypt, we're doing pretty badly on the electricity front because, well, I don't know, I don't have friends in Egypt because they are all imposters up there, but I've got lots of friends in Nigeria and in Kenya, and it's just unbelievable, the electricity issues that we have. I just heard my ears pricked up there at bad leadership when Khabeko was saying that. But we recently, a couple of months ago, also had a complete blackout at the Oliver Tambo International Airport, which is South Africa's main international airport. I think it was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and all the runway lights went out as well. I mean, I think this is just what Brian was talking about now. The whole airport was plunged into darkness, and they were putting notices out on social media. And I just thought to myself, it's not very good for a country, especially a country like South Africa that's supposedly first world and stable, much more stable than a lot of our other countries, peaceful in that we just had no electricity at the major airports. Exactly the same thing. And no, we have the same problem here with some of the hospitals, and they're suffering because of power outages, and they don't have backup generators. They don't have enough, or fuel is very expensive. The fuel gets stolen, or they're out of fuel and they can't get fuel. And it's just been, I mean, recently we had no electricity for a couple of days. And last year we also had electricity for about 5 days, I think. And the thing is that the businesses are the ones that are suffering the most. And it's the small businesses that there are so many businesses here that have been forced to close their doors because you just can't, these in the malls and these little shops that are paying huge rentals every month, and the shopping malls don't have backup generators all the time. And they just have to close their doors, As it is now, we have load shedding schedules where the whole city the whole country, we are off for 2 to 4 hours at a time, and shifts throughout the day. And it's just crazy because Africa's got so many mineral resources, coal and oil, underground gas reserves, but yet it's all being sold out the continents. And we really are battling a lot here. We normally get our electricity from Botswana and Zambia, I think, but then there's all sorts of, they're all cutting deals with each other, our corrupt governments, to try and, it's terrible. And they're all fun because they sit with solar panels and generators and inverters and batteries and that. But once again, it's the poorest people that suffer the most. It's the people that are still living in substandard housing in the apartheid segregated areas where all non-white people have just been left to stay. Although segregation has fallen away in law, it hasn't actually fallen away in practice. And these are people that are living in shocking conditions where there's not enough electricity. They've got very limited municipal services and that. And they are the ones that are suffering the most. And we have really cold winters here. We have temperatures of like 9 degrees, 6 degrees, 3 degrees at the coldest time. That is really cold. I mean, we've had snow in Johannesburg this year. And there are people that are living with no source of heating. Charcoal is expensive, kerosene is expensive, and it's the poorest people that are suffering. And it's our elite fat cats that are sitting in their estates and their compounds with all the solar panels and all the modcons and everything, and they're fine. And it's the little guys with nothing that at the end of the scale that are taking the brunt of it, as usual, which is what we find in the whole of Africa. It's the same issue everywhere. So it's not good.
Lynda, it's not good. Of course, our viewers, our introductory part have been a part of the challenges we face in Africa, the issue of power outages, the issue of lack of electricity, when in reality, Africa is the source of this electricity. Of course,
Exactly.
The background knows that Uganda has been in a blackout for a few hours just last week. And of course, Uganda has the source of the Nile. And of course, we have the electricity in abundance in my country. We export power to Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania. That is Uganda exporting this power. But there are many instances when Ugandans do not have enough electricity. But of course, these are challenges because, as Khabeko Brian mentioned, people end up dying. Those people in the hospitals, to me, that's the most important thing: how we preserve the lives of people that depend on this electricity so much. I mean, our governments must come up with strategies to have solar connections, for example. We must run away from over depending on electricity per se. We need to look at other sources of energy so that we can survive when we have these kind of hiccups. Now, having said that, Lynda and Brian, we go back to the gist of our discussion today. We are introducing a very important topic of our lives, the state of humanism in Africa and the way forward. Humanism. When we talk about humanism, I'll start with Brian. Brian, what is your understanding of humanism? What is a humanist? And why do you call yourself a humanist anyway?
In this context, Kato, I would say that humanism is a belief in the power of reason, compassion, and empathy that guides and shapes a more inclusive, equitable society. Or in a very simple language, I would say that humanism is a call to prioritize the well-being and rights of people above everything else, but at the same time respecting their diverse perspectives and promoting critical thinking. That's my simple understanding. And one reason as to why I identify as a humanist is because throughout my life and my daily life activities, I always put the well-being of a fellow human before anything else.
I'm coming
So
in now.
I will never prioritize anything else up other than a fellow human being. How I simply understand it.
Yes, Brian, that's a good one. Going back to you again, when do you realize you're a humanist, and why would you join organized humanism, for example?
It goes back in 2017. I've been raised in a Christian family, and my mother is a staunch Christian. So whenever you'd miss going to church, it will be an issue with her at home. But I realized that even when I was going to church, I could see that there are some people going to church, but when I meet these people outside there on weekdays, they are completely different people from those people that I see in church. Some of them you'll meet them very drunk and they are very abusive. And so I started questioning myself and asking myself, uh, why would it be that somebody who goes to church, somebody who is being preached to, will do the exact opposite that is expected of them? And what even hurt me more is that these people would never turn up to help someone who is actually in need. Instead, they would regroup somewhere and start gossiping about that person instead of really helping them. And then I started asking myself, if truly there is a divine being and there is somebody who is watching over us from above, why will this person allow such things to happen to other people and not other people? Because uh, different people are going through different circumstances in life. There are those people that are enjoying life, and there are those people that are really suffering. But we are all worshiping the same God. So why is it that this God is selective? And why is it that human beings cannot just take care of their fellows? Why would I ignore somebody who is suffering and yet I call myself a Christian? So those are some of the questions that I began to ask myself. And I'm very grateful that during that time I was computer literate. So I think the internet also contributed so much to to my uh, my decision on choosing the secular way other than the Christian way. So when I started doing random search on the internet, and then I came across a certain philosophy, atheism, and this atheism, it was talking about those people who lack beliefs in gods. And so I asked myself, are these the people who are being referred to as satanists? And then I came to realize that being a satanist is a completely different thing from being an atheist. And so I even gained much more interest to find out what is this atheism about, and which kind of people are these. So I met Harrison Mumi on Facebook. I remember I DM'd Harrison Mumi and I told him, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I just realized that you're the president of the Atheists in Kenya Society, and I was really curious to learn and understand what atheism really is." And Harrison was such a humble guy by then. We exchanged numbers. He called me. We started talking over WhatsApp. He was explaining so much to me, and I made up my mind, and I felt that, yeah, this is the place that I need to be, because even as much as I'm being forced the other way, my heart is not there, because I will go, but I'm completely absent-minded with whatever is happening there. So we kept on talking with Harrison. I remember there was a time AIK was having a hangout. He called me and told me, you know what, Brian, we're having a hangout at KICC, so you can come over and then you can meet the rest and we can have a discussion. So I joined them, and that thing completely changed my mind. So I decided that now, okay, I'm an atheist. So that was in 2016, not 2017. That was in 2016, and after about 2 months in the AIK group, there were always discussions about philosophy and so on, and then something came there. It was about humanism, and so
Yes.
I decided to find out what's the difference between humanism and atheism, because according to me, they were all the same. But I came to realize later that I was more humanist than being an atheist, because uh, normally atheism stops at having a disbelief in gods, but humanism goes beyond disbelieving in gods and so on. Humanism is more about empathy, compassion, and doing so much. So I came and realized that this is the thing that I I depict more than being an artist, and
Uh,
so I started.
yes, I will stop you right there, Brian. That's a good one. That's a good one, Brian. Of course, I'm going to be bringing in Linda to pick it from there. But of course, to take the viewers back, Brian, that's a good job you have done. Of the word humanism, the etymology of humanism is derived from an Italian word, humanitas, which of course can be traced from the time of Cicero and others. And of course, it was used more into academic kind of terms. That's why today we have the faculties of humanities, the history, the literature, the arts, the faculty of humanities, So we trace the word humanism from the etymology of a Latin word, humanitas. Of course, when we talk about now human, the human being. Now, the modern humanism has placed all emphasis on the individual. It's a philosophy. It's a philosophical of looking at life. The way should be without having God's unity. I'm just making it in a simple way. Now, I'm going to draw it back to my sister Lynda Tilley, who has been very pronounced on differentiating between humanism and atheism. I remember one day reading your own quote on Facebook where you said, not all atheists are humans, but all humanists are atheists. Linda, going back to you, why did you say that?
Thanks, Kato. You know, when I first started questioning religion, obviously I was at school, I was still very young, and you kind of toe the line because it's what you're expected in your family. And it was also once I left school and I started studying that I didn't have to be in that whole environment of going to church and that all the time. So I actually then realized that I didn't believe in a God, I didn't believe in religion. But I was at that stage agnostic, which I think a lot of people go through that stage where they kind of, you still think there's it's not God's, and that's when a lot of people might, they might just look into other religions and try and see whether is Allah, what you think the God, and you Buddhism and Hinduism and everything. I didn't do that. I just felt that there was another power, but I thought that it was more like a creator, like nature, a more natural sort of thing, but I wasn't sure. And then as time went by, I realized that there was no creator, no supernatural. And I started becoming quite interested in the science aspect of creation and evolution as an something that made a lot more sense to me than the whole Adam and Eve fairy tale and everything. And once I started looking into science, I realized that there are biological reasons, why life is conceived and why certain things grow and evolve, and it had nothing to do with any creator as such. So then I realized, the same as Brian, with in those days, then we had internet, and I was actually living in very remote locations in East Africa where we didn't have access to the internet, only when we were in like the major centers and that. So it was probably quite a few years into that I actually started looking online, and I think I probably found something one day, followed a link, and I found myself on the Atheist Republic page. And I was following something to do with science because I was living in Tanzania, and I had been to Olduvai Gorge, which is, where the Leakeys, great discoveries in that, where was Lucy. And I was living in an area where there was lots of, traces of our ancestors and science of evolution, and there was a lot of that around me. So I was friends with people whose parents had actually known the Leakeys, and it was very interesting talking to them and hearing about all the discoveries and that. So then I really got into that scientific sort of side of it. And then I joined atheist groups, the Atheist Republic South African chapter, because it was the only Atheist Republic chapter in Africa at that time. And I was sort of on the groups and everything. But as time went by, I noticed that what I found on the atheist groups with the atheist people is that they were very condescending towards religious people. They would have huge arguments if they found people posting religious things on their timeline. They would jump down their throats and they would really hammer them. And they were very nasty about their religion. And I think that I call it angry atheists. I think everyone goes to that stage where, I think I was also like that for a while, where you just feel angry that you've been duped, and you can see it for what it is, that religion is just a sham. So you want everybody around you, especially the people that you love, your family and close friends, you want to share this knowledge with them. And a lot of people just are very resistant to it. And that's when you realize that you are pretty much on your own, but you're so absolutely certain that there's no turning back. I think once your eyes have been opened to it, there's absolutely no way you can ever go back to religion. So, just a reminder of how I don't know if you will surely remember with COVID, the whole COVID thing, there was a massive thing on all the groups with atheists between the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers. And all the atheists were very much pro-vaccination from a science perspective, and then we had a lot of the religious people that were anti it, and I saw that nastiness again then. There was a lot of really people getting very, very nasty. Now, that didn't resonate with me. Okay, this is before COVID, obviously. I just saw so much arguing, infighting with atheists, where they would be nasty, really nasty to each other. And I didn't like to be associated under a group of atheists, because for me, they had a bad name. And I also thought, I'm not like that. I've never been like that. I've never been a nasty person. So then I started drifting more towards the other secular groups and the humanist groups. And then I realized that the humanist values are the ones that I'm most identified with. I know many godless people who would still take up arms and kill if they had to, and who still have got, that they're corrupt or they'll steal money or whatever. Now, to me, that is, or they'll be nasty. They'll slam religion even now. They'll put horrible quotes and things like slamming people's religions, which to me is just so unnecessary. And I honestly, that's where I see the big difference, is that I can honestly say from what I believe now is I believe that you are either born a humanist or you're not. I know when I was a Christian, I'm exactly the same now as I was when I was a Christian in my moral values and everything, except I'm a much better person and I'm a much freer person. And I've left religion 25 years ago, so it's been a long time for me. But the thing is that I've realized now too that with a lot of people, like my own mother, she was very religious. She was a humanist, except the only thing between her and I and a lot of good religious people is that they still believe in a God. So they have the same morals and values as us, but they attribute all their goodness and kindness to a God, and they think that they are living their life by obeying God and they're going to be rewarded one day, whereas we don't feel like that at all. I will still do the things now that I did as a Christian, but I do it without any God controlling me or feeling that I'm doing it to be a child of God or to be a good Christian. I do it because of who I am. And I honestly think that we are either born like that or not, because humanism is a compassionate feeling. You can see somebody on the streets that is hungry and needs a blanket, so you'll get them food. A humanist will go home that night and worry about how's that person going to have food tomorrow? What about all the other people that don't have food? How can I try and make a difference so that we don't have this problem anymore? And you'll think beyond that. It's the same as you'll see a dog and a humanist will immediately know that dog is thirsty, whereas someone who isn't interested in animals won't even notice that the dog is injured or thirsty. And I've seen it where I've worked in animal welfare as well, and you get so frustrated with people, but you realize they just can't. To me, that's nothing that can be taught. I can teach you that man is cold, he needs a blanket, he needs food. But that feeling that you get inside you when you go home at night and you worry about that, and you worry about all the other people in the world that don't have food, and you worry about what you're going to do tomorrow and what's going to happen to that man if it rains. You cannot teach humanism, I don't believe. You can teach the values in that, but I honestly don't believe that you can take a person. You cannot teach empathy. You can't teach that extra sort of caring side. So I think that that's what defines humanists. And to me, that is the essence of all the Black people that I know and I have ever, in the different countries I've lived in, people who've been educated, uneducated, religious, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, traditional religion, rural areas, city people. It is a common trait I have seen throughout all the different Black tribes. It is that, we call it Ubuntu. It is the caring for your community, for your fellow man, caring for everything around you. You care for you don't pollute your water because it's your water source. You don't chop your trees down because it's, there's bird life and insect life there and fruits. You look after your if the neighbors need help, you help them if you can, and you work together as a community. And I have seen that cutting through every kind of economic situation, education level, throughout my life in all the countries I've lived, worked and traveled in. It is the one thing that connects us all as African people. And that is not something that you can be taught. I can honestly say the Black race is the kindest race, the real kindest race. And I honestly mean that. It's a genuine kindness. Now, humankind started in Africa. So, of course, humanism started in Africa, what they call humanism. But the thing is, I identify as a humanist because it connects me to like-minded people. But I don't call myself I'm not a humanist, because I feel that what this is that we call humanism, there is no word for it. It's like love. It changes. It's different with different people. How do you define love? Love is also a word that's been put on us to describe something. You can have different love for a partner, for a parent, for a child. Humanism, it's an intangible thing. So I don't like the fact that it's boxed and it's logoed and we've got colours and logos and we've got the 10 commandments of humanism. I looked at those and I identified them with all of them, and I thought, I'm a humanist. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's a very, very tiny part of what humanism is, because you can't actually describe it. You can't describe what it is. So I don't know how you feel about that, but it's honestly how I feel.
You made me smile throughout. You see, I always have the biggest smile when we are talking, because I fall in love with you when we are talking, of course. But sometimes I say, no, you are not saying the right thing, because humanism is not about black people. Humanism is about the human being.
Yes.
But I know you love black people more. But the fact is that humanism is all about us all as individuals. Lynda, yes. To take you back to what you have been saying, I must say 2 or 3 things about humanism. Number one, that I agree with you entirely. No one teaches any other person humanism. And I agree with you entirely that it's something which is inborn. All of us have the potential to be humane. That's the way I put it in a summary. All of us have the potential to be humane. And you did it so beautifully when you talk about love. That how do you describe love? I can have the love I have for you may be different from the love I have for my child. It may be different from the love I have for my mother or the mother of my children. It may be different kind of love, but these are feelings that we feel genuinely. But when you look at humanism is the philosophical stance that emphasizes the individual before any other thing. It puts the morality, the inquiry, everything aside. There is what we call the agency of the human potential. The agency. Now, whatever one does and doesn't put the agency of human beings at stake, then we question your humanism. And I agree with you. When you are a so-called humanist organization and you don't put emphasis on the agency of the individual, but you put your desire for money, your desire for wealth, you become corrupt, then we start questioning your humanism. We ask ourselves, are you a humanist? Because humanism places the agency, the word is agency of the human being, above any other thing. I don't believe in God. That's good enough, but that's not humanism. And I agree with you, because this is where humanism differs with atheism. Lynda, I was lucky to have worked on the board of Atheists International.
Yes.
And at the same time to have worked on the board of Humanist International. So I know the difference between these organizations, the approaches they have. One is so militant, another is so pro-human, So that's where the difference is. That someone has an ideology, you want to bash everything, Another says, how are people faring? Regardless whether they are religious or not, regardless if the president is religious or not, we look at the agency of the human potential as humanists. Now, Lynda, I agree with you, but I wanted to say that all of us as human beings have the seed of humanism embedded within us. We are born with it. No one tells you to love another person. Because I've seen people who have grown in, say, racist families when they have love. But the father may be a racist. Lynda, today I know black people who hate people from other races. I know that.
Yes, tell you this. Sure.
But
no, we've got a lot here in South Africa.
It's not something that you have to tie to a specific skin tone of someone. People are born bad. They are naturally so bad that they will do harm to you regardless of what you have done to them. You know, yet others are so
Exactly.
good to you that they are going to love you as if you are relatives to them. So humanism is part of the human condition that you
It
cannot
is.
simply change by a label that I'm a humanist. Anyone can actually be a humanist if you follow the traits, the principles that humanism throws to us. Lynda, thank you so much for that kind of check. Now our viewers know why there is a difference between humanism and atheism, and of course Brian also gave us his own version and understanding of humanism. Now today, Lynda, we're going to be looking at two things in the passing. We are going to be looking at humanism in Kenya. Then we shall shift back to you after Brian. You'll be telling us about the general state of humanism in Africa, and then we shall be concluding. Of course, we are going to be talking about Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Malawi, wherever you want to touch in the brief as we summarize, and we prepare for our next episode next weekend. But now, over to Brian. Brian, we're going to talk about humanism in Kenya. After your talk, we shall now go back to Lynda to talk about humanism in the rest of Africa, and then we shall be able to wind up. Brian, over to you. Brian, are you there? Brian.
Yes, I'm here.
Brian.
Sorry, I had.
Yes, I want you to be in class. Brian, over to you. Let us hear from you about humanism in Kenya.
Okay, thank you, Kato and Lynda for giving me this
Sorry.
opportunity to join you people as a permanent host in this.
Yes, it's lovely to have you.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
it's a big step, and I'm so humbled that you've given me that opportunity. Um, Today I'll talk much about humanism in Kenya. I am a Kenyan, and so I'm so interested in what's happening in Kenya and how we can improve the whatever situation we are in right now. And generally, I'll focus much more on organized humanism because over the recent years, we've seen so many developments in the secular sector here in Kenya. We've seen rise of so many secular organizations. We have about 3 or 4 humanist organizations. We have the artists, other artist organizations. So it's something that has been really growing. And I will say that in Kenya, humanism is on a promising trajectory, basing on my own assessment. Because over the years, we've always seen new developments, and the prospects are good, and so there is so much to look up to. I will also say that organized humanism here in Kenya has evolved. We've been championing for reason, inclusivity, and the separation of religion from public life, which has always been the major objective of almost all the secular organizations that have been formed here in Kenya. Our main agenda has always been to separate the state and the church, because we realize that in as much as we are advocating for secular values and principles, for as long as that the church and the state are intertwined together, then there is nothing more we are doing. We are just simply
Sure.
wiping the dirt, and after some time the dirt is back. So that's what we've been really working for. And so the state of humanism here in Kenya is quite dynamic and very hopeful, as I said. And because of that, we are having hope of a more enlightened and an equitable society in the near future. Because once we see these organizations coming up, from different parts of the country, we know that we are going to experience some change. It might not happen immediately, but over a period of time, we are going to see. Because I'm trying to assess humanism on 3 aspects: the historical evolution of secularism here in Kenya, and then we have the journey of organized humanism in Kenya over the years, and the third aspect is how humanism has intersected with social issues here in Kenya, which is very much important. And for those who are viewing us from wherever they are, in Kenya back in the early days of independence, Kenya was still a diverse country with different beliefs and traditions because what the lawyer used to do was different from what the Kamba used to do. So it was a really diverse country, and everybody had their own beliefs and their own traditions. And after a certain period of time, people realized that we need to have there was a need to have a society that is more inclusive and have an equitable framework so that progress could be realized. Because in as long as we have different beliefs, traditions, if we can't come up with something that is going to unify us all together, then people are going to be working in different directions. We're going to see the Luyas working towards the other directions, the Kambas towards the other directions, and so it brings an impression of a confused society. And that's why we that journey of having a society that we can coexist peacefully, a society where a Muslim can interact freely with a Christian can interact freely with a Hindu, and so on. That was the vision of humanism here in Kenya. And when this journey started throughout history, uh, we've seen brave individuals and organizations that have been championing for this cause, and they're still championing for it. For instance, you can take, for example, AIK. AIK is the most prominent secular society we have here in Kenya, and it's because of the challenges that AIK has had to go through before it reached where it is today.
AIA is atheist in Kenya. The viewers would like to know that AIK means atheist in Kenya.
Yeah, AIK is the Atheist in Kenya Society. It's currently led by Harrison Mumia and his team. And that's currently the most popular secular organization that is known here in Kenya. And in 2016, when AIK had filed for a registration, they were met with legal obstacles. We saw the registrar declined registering AIK as a society in Kenya, and it forced us to move to court. Uh, we filed a petition at the Supreme Court, and fortunately for us, the Chief Justice by then is also an atheist, and we were able to go through. And so, through such struggles and journey, it's what led presidents to all these organizations that we are seeing being formed today. Because after AIK successfully won their case against the Registry of Societies, immediately the following year we saw organizations like Secular Kenya being formed. Kenya Humanist was also formed later, and even now we have a new organization in Kenya. It's called the Skeptics and Atheists Society of Kenya. It's a new organization, and it did not stop at the boundaries of belief and disbelief. Organized humanism and secularism extended its reach into the heart of critical social issues. Today, as we are speaking, it's now a powerful advocate for justice and equity in the country today. These secular organizations are the ones that are really advocating for social issues in Kenya. The other day, we were campaigning about the reproductive health rights. And when you are keen to follow up, you'll realize that it's only the secular organizations that have the balls enough to call on the government on such poor policies. We are the same people that are advocating for the women rights and LGBT rights, because we believe that everyone has a space in the society, regardless of what they believe in, regardless of their sexual orientation, color, and their race. So organized humanism has been a very key element in progressive issues in the Kenyan societies, especially the education sector and the social sector. And that is evidence when you look at the intersection between secularism and social issues, because it's in that intersection where you'll see the impact of organized humanism. When we were advocating for reproductive health rights, people thought that maybe we were deluded or something. But when the bill came to parliament, now people were able to open up their eyes. They were able to see. They're able to see that. So this advocacy was really for us, not against us, because most people believe that anyone who doesn't believe in a god is a devil worshipper, which is not the case. And these societal norms, they're the ones which have always encouraged us. They have always encouraged us to keep on fighting, because the more we make outreach, the more we are able to convince people to rethink whatever ingrained beliefs they have towards uh, different things in the society. For example, women rights. Most of the people who are undermining women, these are people who are still grounded in their traditional ways of life. But when we reach out to these people, and during our workshops and so on, we are able to change their way of thinking, and then people are able to realize that, oh, so this and this is how things should be happening, not the way we were thinking. And they're able to think logically and reason and say, okay, a woman is also equally enough to a man. There is nothing that a man can do that a woman cannot do. And the moment these people have this perception, then they open up to so many possibilities. And we've seen in marginalized communities, girl children being taken to school, unlike the past where girls were not taken to school. So all these impacts has been brought by uh, organized humanism. It's these humanist organizations that have been doing this groundwork. We're the ones who've been championing uh, for good legal frameworks, at least legal policies that are not aimed to undermine a certain group of people because of whatever it is that they stand for. The other day, when the government was launching the competency-based curriculum, we were invited and we were asked that we should also write recommendations on how we want the syllabus to be restructured. And we submitted our recommendations, and we were happy that they were going to be reconsidered. So if we don't have such organizations, then we are going to give enough space to religions and traditions to infiltrate our society. And we all know any society that is anchored on religion and traditions, we all know what happens. You look at Afghanistan and then you wonder what's going on there. So I think for us here in Kenya, we've been trying so hard so that we can change the general perspectives of the society and see a more inclusive society than what we've been having before. Even in the government, we are trying to lobby the government so that even the public policies that are being enacted, they should be policies that have been based on evidence and science, not religion, traditions, and hearsays. And that's why bills like the anti-LGBTQ bills, they're really having a hard time here in Kenya, because even our members of parliament, some of them are now opening up to the reality that we need to have a separation of state and church, because the same policies that they are advocating for is the same that is being used to haunt them. Although even in our journey in advocating for humanistic principles and values, we are faced with so many challenges, and that's what's making it hard for us to grow to the potential that we are supposed to be. Because even as much as I'm saying that we are on the right trajectory, I think we are growing at a very slower rate than we should, because I'm looking at the first organization that was formed here in Kenya. It was formed in 2008. That was the Kenya Humanist Association. But Kenya Humanist Association wasn't registered by then, because we know how our government was operating then. We couldn't have a secular organization being registered until 2016 when Atheists in Kenya society took the bull by its horns. But the major issue that we are facing here in Kenya, as far as secularism and humanism is concerned, we are fighting amongst ourselves. That unhealthy intra-competition, whereby the atheists in Kenya society, you'll find, for example, the atheists in Kenya society wants to be the only secular organization that's operating in Kenya that's known. So in the process, they sabotage the progress of other organizations. You find so it's we are fighting ourselves. So Kenya Humanist is fighting with secular Kenya, and so on and so on. And reading from Hitler's Book of War, Hitler says that you can't win a war when you are fighting amongst yourselves. You must be strong. You must you must support each other, because it's us against religions. So if you are fighting amongst ourselves, we become weak, because even some of these legal battles that our organizations are facing, they are also sponsored by other competitors. So it becomes hard when an organization files for a registration, then the registrar requires you to go for of no objection from another registered society. They decline to support you, and you know that's not good. So if you don't support the other organization, they're not going to get registered because you declined to facilitate the letter of no objection. And the other thing, we're also corrupt. Our organizations are very corrupt. Some of these organizations, they should be very far from where they are today, but there is that embezzlement of funds. We have some leaders who don't want to give others the opportunity to lead. They feel that because they founded this organization, they should be there until they die. And it has really brought a lot of division in the secular community here in Kenya, because once there is a fallout in this organization, for example, Kenya Humanist, it's the same people who have booted that organization that will go and form secular Kenya. So they start a parallel organization and they start competing with the atheists in Kenya society. Within the secular Kenya, we'll also have a fallout because of the same reasons that they were running away from AIK. So we don't want to face the issues and address them. So we run away, forgetting that where we are going, we're also going to create the same reasons. And that's why I know it's not okay for me to say, but I usually say that we are so much disorganized, because we are so many so many secular organizations that don't cooperate. Somebody in AIK doesn't even know what's going on in secular Kenya. Somebody in secular Kenya doesn't know what's happening in Kenya Humanist. So there is a petition in court that secular Kenya has presented, only to realize that AIK had already presented a similar petition. So there is we are not really collaborative, and that's one major reason that humanism here in Kenya and our counterparts in Uganda have really taken advantage of that. And Uganda is really organized, because in as much as they have so many humanist and other organizations, you'll realize that there is that cohesiveness. The founder of Kasese Humanist is working with these other organization, and they're all under an umbrella of Uganda Humanist Association. And so that's what Kenya is. You don't have an organization that is uniting us together for for a common goal. So we are just disorganized. That one is doing their work there, although we are all working for the same towards the same objective, but we are working different, and it's not helping. It's spoiling, because we even find ourselves that we are even insulting each other in the media. Reasons being, somebody feels that the other organization is doing better than the other organization. So what do? Let us start a war and let us sabotage this thing. And that has been a major problem. But despite all that, we've really achieved so much, because you look at in the science and the education sector, we've really made impact. Looking at the recommendations that we presented the last time to the education committee, we've seen that we've seen some adjustments. When you come to social issues, as I was telling you, we've seen the reproductive health campaigns taking shape. They are working. Family planning, whatever, they are working. Women empowerment, we are really trying. So we are really not where we are supposed to be, and I still believe we can do better if maybe we can address one or two things. But so far, I think we are on the right track. I would give us a rating of 56%. That's above average. And I believe there's still room for improvement if we can only come together, work as a team, and then maybe we can see what the future holds. But so far, we are not that bad. We are really trying.
Your presentation was really good. I liked all those slides and that you did. Thanks, Brian. That was really a nice visual to have up on the screen while you were talking.
Actually, trying to give the audience a visual impression of whatever it is that I'm saying. So I thought that
yeah,
it will be.
That's really great.
But that was
Very interesting.
Kato, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you either. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think
you sound like you're underwater.
You can't.
Just keep on talking.
Sorry?
Keep on talking, and we'll see if it gets clearer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brian. That was really very good. If you can hear me, let me know if you can hear. I had to switch gadgets. The other one was.
Yeah, we can hear you, Kato. Oh, I think
we can hear you. I think we did. Okay, let me carry on. It's so cold. It's getting so cold here now. I just wanted to say I could really resonate with what you were saying there, Brian, because you talk about how your groups in Kenya are split, and I see that in a lot of our countries. It's so crazy because we are so much in the minority as godless people in each of our countries. But yet, even so, there are rifts and splits between us. And it's very much often it's the atheists against the humanists and the secular, or it's the different cities with their different. And there's always, it's just so ridiculous because there are so few of us. You'd think that we would all be pulling together. But you're right. And the social media arguments going on and everybody trying to outdo each other, which to me is not humanism, really, you know, when you've got all this competition between you. But I see it as well. And with recent incidents in Nigeria these last few weeks, there's now an absolute rift. There's a complete split between the groups, you know, and it's kind of like people are which side are you on sort of thing. And it's really, really very, very bad, actually, because out of all the, you know, you'd think we'd be doing a lot better than the religious people are, and that we would be setting an example as humanists on how to embrace each other and get on despite our differences. But it's not the case at all. And I don't know if it's human nature or why there is this rivalry and jealousy and, you know, people trying to say, well, we've been humanists for longer than you, or our group was registered before yours. It's so egotistical, which goes against everything that humanists are. So it's been quite an eye-opener, I must say, to see that split.
I think I agree with you, Lynda, because it's not really helping, because if we are fighting amongst ourselves, then we are just weakening ourselves, because those that are against us, there are so many. We are fighting against almost
Exactly.
the whole world. And I think the problem comes here. Some people stay too long in their positions until they even forget why they are there. And
Sure.
some of them, it's really heartbreaking that even today some people just enter into humanism because they want to achieve this and this. Not everyone is there because they really want to advance humanism as a philosophy and a way of life. So they end up uh, placing their own interests before everything else. And that's so bad.
Absolutely.
If we are going to that direction, then it's not going to help us. We're just going to fall, and it's so bad.
Yeah, Lynda, coming back to that, I want to thank Brian. Brian, can you hear me now?
I can hear you very clear.
Yeah, I want to thank Brian for that brilliant presentation, Lynda. I think
It
you
was
agree with me that
excellent.
it was awesome, and I do believe that, of course, even not believing, but thinking that our viewers have appreciated it, Lynda. Brian, I
Very
was
much.
taken aback when you told me about the divisions in Kenya. I was in Kenya for some years, and of course, I followed the formation of Kenya Humanist Association, which was led by my friend, my comrade, the late Moses Alusala, who I worked with from 2006. I should tell you that Kenya Humanist Association was alive, as far as I'm concerned, from 2006. And basically, if you look at your history, it was just a bit earlier than 2016, you said. Now, what is important to me is that one, Kenya Humanist Association was the first humanist NGO to be registered in Kenya, and it had members, and then other organizations came on board. In fact, I remember advising them to allow KHA be the umbrella. Lynda, it's important that we recognize that you need to be led. But the problem is that many of us are so egoistic that we don't trust
True.
the importance of coming under one umbrella. This is the reason why
Sure.
we have Humanist International, is not to tell us what to do, but to have something you look up to. It's like having, I'm using an example which may not be so direct. It's like having a mother in the house or a father figure in the house. Someone we are going to look up to and see if I'm going to have benchmarks, I'm going to bench my results on this. Like we have a role model, that kind of thing. Now, what I've realized with Humanist Kenya from Brian Khabeko's presentation is that there's a lot of mess in Kenya. Yet there's a lot of life in Kenya, because how do you tell me that NGOs are competing against themselves? Which NGOs are humanist in a way, are atheist in a way? Where does the ego come from when you are all focused on combating one challenge in a society? Lynda, all of us are fighting against domestic violence. Why should we be competing? All of us
Exactly.
are fighting against poverty, against early marriages, against homophobia. If all of us are fighting
Exactly.
an evil, a vice in society, why should we be hating each other? Hate is so big a word, but why should we be competing? Because in the first place, there is no money as far as I'm concerned. Unless that money is coming from elsewhere, I don't know. Because for me, who has been in the system for some time, there is no money that is coming every year to this organization. I've been there, I know. There is a year you will spend your own money without earning anything. In fact, when I was working with KHA, Kenya Humanist Association, they spent many years without getting a penny. In fact, the first funding KHA got was when I was the chairperson for Africa. So many years when they have been registered, Lynda. You get it? So there was no money. Alusala and the team were simply working because they loved the philosophy. These were intellectuals. Because now I wonder, if there's no money to fight for, what are you fighting for? But even if there was money, like in Uganda, there are money in organizations, but you're also fighting. I don't hear all of you here us fighting in Uganda, for example. So, Lynda, I'm going to not dwell so much on that, but it's a shame that human organizations are so petty, that there is so much egoism. Now we are seeing it from this organization, and it's spilling over Africa. We have been having challenges in West Africa, as we're going to point out. Ego, people taking over. Brian mentioned the idea of people saying, "I'm the founder. I'm the founder." That's syndrome. I was there first. Lynda, I'm always happy to say I joined the humanist movement in Uganda when others had started it. I've been always open about that. I never found organized humanism because I was not part of the founders. They found it in 1996. I joined in 1999. So I give them credit because they formed it and I joined. There's no way I can say I formed it because there's no pride in telling lies. I mean, when you start something, allow others to take over because we mentor others.
Absolutely.
We mentor others. But I see in Africa a syndrome where someone wants to be there in a position forever.
Yeah, it's like a dictatorship. It doesn't work.
You want to be the one traveling everywhere, the one calling the shots. My friend, there's a problem. Because humanism is not a profession. It's not a job.
Exactly.
I've been saying it. I'm a lawyer, and that's my profession.
All humanists are poor. Because any salary that you do earn, you use it to help people.
My job is being a humanist. You know? I mean, it's laughable. Khabeko Brian is an IT specialist. You know, you must have a profession. You do. You may be a social worker like Lynda. Yeah? But that's a profession, social work. But I'm saying, I'm a humanist. I'm a humanist. Whenever you stand up, I'm a humanist. It's not a job. It's not a profession.
Job description. Yeah.
It's like it's a badge of honor. It's like say, I'm a Catholic. I'm a Catholic. I come from a Catholic background. There's no like I'm a Catholic. I'm a former Catholic. No way. So this is the problem I think we are facing in Africa. People think humanism is becoming a job. It's becoming a profession. Now, Lynda, having had that, we shall be wrapping up with the way forward. Lynda, back to you now about the way you see humanism today. Today is an introduction. The next episode is going to be more fire. Let us have that introduction from you, Lynda, from your perspective.
Well, I think that humanism in Africa is all over the show at the moment. It's like we talk about the splits in the different groups in each country, but we are quite cohesive when we work together across different countries. We connect, but in those organizations as well, there also seems to be a lot of favoritism with funding from the outside organizations, the Atheists Alliance International and Humanist International, that fund a lot of the projects. There's a definite favoritism towards certain countries each year or certain projects each year. There's no cohesion. I mean, I've seen huge grants being given out for humanist ceremonies in West Africa, which it's a very important thing and it really is fantastic and it's something that we need. But if I look at it, it's the last thing we should be using funding for now when we need more things like safe houses to keep people protected. I think it's ridiculous to spend $5,000-6,000 a year on humanist ceremonies, teaching people to become celebrants when you don't have that number of people that are going to actually be booking out or wanting to do celebrant services, or people that want to get married or have their babies in that kind of environment, when that money can be better used for establishing food security or say a safe house with, you know, producing its own food that can save the lives of people. So, you know, and then you'll see somebody else, like you say, we're all dealing with similar issues. Then there'll be somebody else on the other side of Africa, which has been given money for mental health, producing podcasts and things to help people with mental health issues. There's no cohesion. And if we actually, the whole thing with humanism is that we don't want to be reliant on grant funding all the time from overseas. We want to be able to become self-sufficient ourselves, and to be able to help each other out with things too. So when we look at funding in that, if a huge amount is given out for, say, producing podcasts or something, that is something which many African countries can benefit from. But we need to, but there's no controls in place. And I also think that how I see it, like with this team that we're working on at the moment, we've each got our own experience and different backgrounds. We're working on a close team with issues that we are facing in Nigeria at the moment. I don't see any of us as being, and we're all ages and all different countries and all different backgrounds. I don't see any of us as being better than the other or longer established or this. I see it as I put it this week on our group, it's like you need all these ingredients to put into the pots to make the perfect meal. But if you've got one ingredient missing, the whole thing is going to taste awful, it's going to flop, it's not going to work out. So that's how I kind of see humanism. And now, especially since we're working in very close-knit groups in a very high stressful situation that's going on at the moment. So we each have something to add. And I think I wish that we could see humanism like that across Africa, is that you're not a humanist leader of this or you lean on each other and you've each got your own good qualities. And I also think how we felt with humanist leaders that represent the continent, that through one organization or whatever. We also felt in some of the other groups, like with grant funding and with assessing who's at risk, which people need to be, moved out of high risk areas. You can't.
Lynda, I can't hear you. I don't know whether you can hear me, but your voice, Lynda, your voice is off. Can you hear me? Lynda, your voice is off. You were really saying very good things, but your connection, your voice is off. Lynda, can you hear me? Brian, can you hear Lynda?
Yeah, no, I can't hear her. I think there is a network problem wherever she is. Yeah.
But as we wait to get her back, Lynda, your connection is off. Brian, what do you have to say about what you have been said so far?
Looking at the current situation on how things are in the humanist community, I think the best way forward would be that we should prioritize humanist values and agendas over our own personal interests. That's the only way we can advance humanism, whether in Kenya or in Africa. Because looking at what Lynda has been saying and what you've also been saying, I think we are all facing the same problem, whether it's Kenya, whether it's Nigeria, or whether it's any other African country. So we just need to work together. We need to support each other. And the most important thing, we have to be honest with our intentions. If we decide to be dishonest and not accountable for the things that we are doing, then we are definitely going nowhere. And that's why it's very important. I usually tell my colleagues here that it's usually very important that in whatever activities that you undertake as an organization, the whole organization should be put in the light, such that in case of anything, there's going to be that transparency. People are going to know the way forward. But as from how things look, I think humanism has been capitalized, and it's more of a personal thing than a societal thing. So somebody is doing something because they have their own personal agenda. They want to benefit from something, and that's not really helping us at all. So I'm really emphasizing that we should collaborate, we should work together, And the most important thing, we must be honest and accountable for everything that we are doing in the name of humanism. That's
I agree.
Yeah, Brian, that's very important. And I've been saying that louder in Uganda, that we don't need to compete amongst each other. Because as I just gave an example, Lynda, that if all of us are fighting against a vice, something wrong in society, why should we be competing to fight against a vice? Because if all of us want to end child marriages, then we combine effort and work together. Instead of working as an individual, you work as 10 people with one voice, because you want to remove this stumbling block and then move forward. Otherwise, if you are claiming to be fighting child marriages, but again you are fighting another actor who's fighting the same, then there is a question mark on whether actually you are fighting that. Lynda, back to you. Your voice connection was off.
Can you hear me now, Kato?
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. I think this cohesion and working together is so important, because also, there are some of us who are very high risk, that are in situations where they have to leave their country, whether they are LGBT or they are writers who are being persecuted, or they need to get to safety. Now, not everybody can flee overseas or has the opportunity or the means to do that. I know for a fact, with a lot of the high-risk atheists in Nigeria at the moment, they would be very, very safe to come to South Africa to sit it out for a few months or whatever until things quieten down. The same as with all the horrible things that we are hearing now with the Ugandan LGBT draconian laws. I believe somebody was just recently charged under the new law for the first time. A very high-risk person, say in Uganda, could easily come safely to South Africa, where there's not that much discrimination against LGBT, to sit it out safely for a while, in someone's a fellow humanist's home or whatever, in the same way that if a Muslim, an ex-Muslim person was being really badly persecuted, they could go into a predominantly Christian country and be, just working together with things like this as well. And knowing that if you've got funding and you're working on something like you're doing a video educational series, it's something that you can share with humanists on the other side of the continent as well that can benefit from it. It's just that working together, because I've always said our governments are never going to unite us as countries, because they don't, it's not in their best interests to do that. It's the divide and rule thing. And also our governments and our politicians are driven, they are swayed easily by bribes, money, ego, power, fame. So they will never have the true humanist values, where they will go, I would save the life of a person in another country as much as I would save a life of a person in my own country, because it's a person, it's a human. Whereas with our governments and our politicians, they've always got ulterior motives, what's in it for them. This is why I've always said that it's humanists one day who are going to unite our continents. We're already now helping humanists escape from places where they're in great danger, where they could have actually been killed, and get into safe areas within Africa. We're already helping, standing up for humanists in other countries, like these issues in Nigeria now. There are a lot of countries that are supporting the Nigerian humanists against everything that they're going through. And that's incredible to see, because where else would you ever find a political situation where you'd have Ugandans and Kenyans supporting Nigerians? That it wouldn't be. And the nice thing with us is that we can get involved in other people's countries from a humanist point of view, to speak up for them and to help and support them, without it being seen as we've got political motives, or we've got tribal motives, we connect with one tribe and it's a tribalism thing, because we're completely neutral outside people. And I just think this is such a strength of humanism that we are kind of overlooking in a way, because of all the infighting and everything that's going on. And I really think, I just don't know how we are going to resolve that. I think one of the first things we need to do in all of our countries is that we have to start normalizing atheism. We have to start normalizing being godless, which means we need to be a lot more visible, and we need to be out there doing things so that people can see that you don't need a God to be good. We just need to make the whole, I think it would make it a lot easier. As it is, we know we all battle with finding, well, if you're single, relationships is always an issue, because like all my male, it's mostly male atheists, there's very few female atheists. And it's almost impossible to, majority of my atheist male friends have resigned themselves to the fact that they will date religious women. They don't have any other choice. We've all got issues with jobs, there's a persecution or where you live or with your families. So we should actually be joined together as communities, and we should be all sort of, I don't know, living in similar areas and starting businesses where we employ each other. And then, you have relationships starting and people have kids, and then you're spreading, you've got, you start a school where your kids are all going to school together on humanist values. But it's a slow process, if you think how long it's taken religion to get to this horrific state that it is now. And I can also resonate with what Brian was saying earlier. And I don't know what you think, Kato, but I feel that religion is worse post-independence than it was during colonialism. I've seen it in my country. Obviously I was young, but I can honestly say that Zimbabwe was never such a religious country. It was, yes, we had religion, but very few and far between churches. Now we've got all the Pentecostal churches, we've got the evangelical churches, and every second person you see, it's all about God. And I really even could say that even in countries that I've traveled in and then gone back 2 years later here, religion seems to be growing. I think there's a lot more religious people and fewer people following traditional religions, and it shouldn't be that way, because with our respective independences, we should have reverted back to traditional cultural practices and beliefs, and we've gone the opposite direction.
Lynda, I agree with you, and I agree with Brian. It's a shame. It's a shame.
It is such a shame, because it's pulling us backwards.
We are rolling backwards in Africa. In fact, statistically, Africa is getting more religious by the day. Statistically, Africa has the highest number of Muslims in the world. If you check it, Islam is taking sway in Africa. It's very interesting stats. If you look at the research, Islam is taking over Africa. There are many Muslims in Africa. If you look at the numbers, the Christians in the global south are taking over. There are more churches in Uganda than schools. There are more churches in Uganda than hospitals. I'll talk about Uganda. I cannot talk about Kenya. I cannot talk about South Africa. But there are more churches in Uganda than hospitals in Uganda. There are more pastors on the streets of Kampala than critical thinkers are doing critical thinking in schools. There are more religious schools in Uganda than critical thinking promotion schools in Uganda. So there's a disappointment to me. Who would have been expecting an advancement of critical thinking in Africa, rolling back. There are so many miracles now in Africa. In Africa, we have more of people believing in witchcraft than science. Our children are more religious than those who brought religion to them. They are becoming pastors. When you ask them what they want to become, they are saying, I want to be a pastor, I want to be this, I want to be this. Today when you look at dating sites in Africa, when you look at programs where people go to seek lovers, the qualification to be a lover must be God-fearing. And I've been always asking myself, now me who's an unbeliever, and I see this beautiful woman on the screen looking for a husband, but the qualification is he must be God-fearing. Now, the problem is that we have few female atheists, because honestly, atheism is something which doesn't sound so well in a society that is ultra-conservative, For a girl to say, I'm an atheist, you are more likely to be called a prostitute, an abortionist, all dirty names. And of course, women, you know, are gentle. They don't want to be associated with evil because of the nature of women. Of course, they are humble people. They are mothers. They are good people. They want to be taken in a very good light, you know. So you find that many of us, including myself, got affairs with religious women, have had children with religious women. And it's a cantankerous kind of affair, because me being an atheist, and then in your house you have someone who's calling upon Jesus every night and every day, you know. So I should tell you this: I've gone through this, and I've had very unstable marriages. I call them marriages in quotes because I've never married officially, because I refuse to really commit to any stupidity that I can do for something that is going to last a long time. But honestly, Lynda, having someone you love, but you cannot simply connect. Someone is praying for Jesus under your roof. Someone is taking your children to Jesus every Sunday. Someone is fasting for Jesus, and you hate everything about this Jesus. Now, Lynda, it can be so annoying. I should actually stop there. So this is the kind of annoyance. And I wish I had an atheist woman. I wish I had, you know, because we need them, but we cannot find them, Lynda. So these are things we need to look at. How do we create a community where faithless girls can meet faithless boys? So it's normal. Yeah? Because
to normalize it, exactly.
Facebook, I know what I've gone through, and I've had challenges in my relationship. I've had very many challenges because my spouse is religious. In fact, I had to break my first partnership to go to a second one, and the second one was even worse, you know. And you have children in between. So someone is going to say, this man who loves women, he changes them. 5 years ago, he had this. 4 years ago, now he has this, you know. But you cannot find peace, you know. There's no way you're going to allow someone to make your home a church.
Also, the in-laws get very involved as well, I found.
Yes.
It's
no
his,
way, Lynda,
the parents of your spouse also get involved with that whole religious thing as well.
Yes. There's no way you're going to be happy when you see your spouse indoctrinating your children under your watch, you know. So some of us have had this is the first time, as Dennis has put there, this is the first time talking about my relationship openly. This is the first time. But I should tell you, Lynda and Brian, I've been very bitter in my life, because in my marriages, I call them marriages in course, because I've never gotten a woman I could sync with, you know. Because to me, ideology is everything. Sex fades away. Your beauty fades away. But if our mind cannot meet, if Lynda, we can't talk and I feel you, there's nothing we are going to be doing in the bed that is going to impress me, because that one fades away, as you know. The emotions, the whatever. There must be something which brings us together. We must have a conversation which is mature, which is ideological rooted. I can't be talking about serious business and talking about Jesus Christ in my house, you know. So these are issues, Lynda, we must look forward to handling. How do you create a community where we get faithless girls on board? Because
it's normalizing it. You see, I think with women as well, we're under a lot of pressure because the women are very much the ones that are involved in the community. You know, you're with your community of women, helping out at the church, and your children are at school together, and you're involved in. It's very much a social status thing, I think, with a lot of women, is the church. And what I don't like, sorry, is that what I've seen now, I see in general, women are more faithful to their God and their pastor than they are to their husbands. They spend more time at church. They're more devoted. They're more dedicated. They will honor and respect and obey this unseen supernatural being, that they will spend so much of their life will be ruled by that supernatural being, but yet they will be neglecting their own husbands, you know. They will be putting so much faith in their church and in their pastors. And of course, we've had lots of incidents around Africa lately with all these, you know, where the pastors will have these special female-only sessions, cell groups, church meetings, and that. And then, you know, 9 months later, all women in the church are pregnant, kind of thing. I mean, it's really, it's getting out of hand. But I'm just saying is that, you know, for a woman she will get up early in the morning and pray, and putting God before your own flesh and blood husband and your children. It's everything is obeying God, obeying the church, obeying and following the Bible. It is a huge thing. But you see, is this being done on purpose? It's just to further split people, to split us even more, to split couples, to split families, because religion is it's a political tool. I mean, it was originally a political tool, and you can see how it's being used now, because it's, we've got the LGBT, which are split from, everyone's, and then we've got the splits within religions and within marriages, and people that are, it's just crazy. Religion has caused more damage on our continent than anything else, hands down. And when I look at places like, I go to the UK, and Kato, in the UK, you can be there for however many weeks, you will never hear a church bell, or you will never hear anybody going to church. Never. If you go to a wedding or whatever, it's a secular, it's not even a thing. The kids don't have Bibles, and like we were brought up in Africa. A lot of the churches in the UK now have been turned into like business premises, or they're just nice places you can go and look at the stained glass and that. It is a total chalk and cheese. Exactly, and it's like the opposites. And I found the few times, I have traveled overseas, people don't discuss religion, and it's not a case of who is religious. It's a case of no, it isn't a case of who isn't religious. It's a case of who is religious. In the UK, if you had to be out somewhere and someone said, "Oh, I've got to go now, I've got church," or "I must," prayed before, you had dinner or whatever in a restaurant, you would think that's weird. Like, you would think strange. You would notice it. But here, you don't, because it's just so commonplace. And, we've got with the Muslim communities, there's prayer, and I was sitting somewhere the other day with my son at the doctor's, and we were waiting in the queue. We were just ready to go, but then the doctor had to go and break for his morning prayer. So, he went out with his prayer mat, and it's just, it's everywhere. And it's whereas overseas, people are drifting away. We are going backwards. We are being pulled further backwards into the dark ages. It's dumbing our people's minds.
Lynda,
it's terrible.
Lynda, it is embarrassing. It is terrible. I want us to wind up this, but I'm going to make this comment before I go to Brian. Now, Lynda, honestly, having had all those challenges, where we have a common, I will call it enemy, in inverted commas, in quotes, enemy, that the problem, and Lynda, I agree with you 101%. That the problem of Africa today is religion. People are going to talk about politics, they're going to talk about this, but my reasoning has been that once you enter people's psyche, Lynda, when you draft the reasoning of a people, when you incapacitate their thinking abilities, they are going to go to politics for the wrong reasons. They are going to become governors, presidents for the wrong reason, because they cannot independently think through the obvious. Because what people in the West see as wrong, people who are religious see it as right. Now, I agree with you, and that has been my theory, that the biggest problem humanity has today is religion. The religion dictates our politics. The religion dictates our economy. The religion dictates our policies. And I'm talking about Africa. Anyone can do research on that. If you doubt that the problem is religion, you are telling a lie of yourself if you know about Africa. In Africa, we are still fighting religious wars.
Yes, we pitted against each other as well now.
We are still refusing to marry each other because of the religious differences. Lynda, I can marry you and everyone is going to be happy with me because, that's okay. But
exactly, and presidents are chosen, political parties are also chosen according to religion.
But I cannot marry a Muslim girl at one point. A Muslim girl may be refused to marry me.
Yes, that's right.
Political parties that are based on the religious foundation. In Uganda, DP was for Catholics. UPC was for the Protestants. JEMA is for the Muslims. These are political parties. So if you don't see the problem with the religion, then you are missing a point. You have a parliament where a speaker stands up and says, me as a Christian, I hate homosexuality, and therefore I must give my country a Christmas gift in the form of a law, and this law is the Anti-Homosexuality Act. So you are even legislating matters of the nation basing on your religious ideologies. So if anyone doesn't see the problem with the religion in Africa, is missing a point. That's why I agree with you. Humanism should be given the first priority in Africa. Because humanism helps people to think. Humanism helps people to think for
solve their own problems.
And finally, once you can think for yourself, Lynda, you can solve so many things. Me, the day I owned my brain, I owned myself. And I've been telling it to young people like Brian, the day you own your brain, you own yourself. Me, I cannot be managed by a woman, and I don't want a woman to manage me. I don't want me to manage her, but neither does she need to manage me, because I should manage myself.
Equal, yeah.
So if you are telling me, because you are equal, if you are telling me my children must go to church, I say no. Let us have a middle ground, because you cannot manage me, because for you, those are sentiments. The same way, I don't want a government to manage me, because I have my
Exactly.
That's why I'm out of my country for now, because there's no I can see you doing stupid things, and I will simply calm down and say, okay, that's okay. After all, for me, I'm okay. I can drive a good car. I have a nice house. But once I'm a humanist, there's something driving me that something's wrong. I need to speak about it. It comes with consequences. Lynda, I know how much you have suffered, how much you have lost, because there's that humanism in you. Humanism transcends skin color. We are all born humanists. We simply turn out to be bad people at the end of the day, because of conditioning, because of our parentage, because of society, because of schools we go to, because of the guardians. But all of us, babies, are born innocently good.
And we're all born atheists as well, without a God. It's the religion that's assigned to us at birth.
Exactly. So someone drafts us, someone poisons our thinking along the way. The schools we go to, Lynda, I went to ultra Catholic schools because I come from a Catholic background, So in conclusion, Lynda, I want to invite Brian, because we are going to continue this conversation next Saturday. And of course, Lynda, I hope that we get a guest from South Africa or a guest from Nigeria, as the case may be, so that we spice it up from
Zambia. Zambia's got a huge problem. Well, not problem. Have you seen how heavily involved the churches are getting with the politics in Zambia?
Yes, Lynda. So, Lynda,
as someone from there.
I wonder upon my part, next Saturday we are going to have a guest, probably from Ghana or Nigeria, so that we can hear from them. And
definitely,
then, of course, Brian is going to be with us permanently. Brian, back to you. Give your concluding remarks, because we are past our time. Brian?
Thank you once again, Kato, for giving me an opportunity. You've said that the biggest problem with Africa today is religion. I agree with you absolutely. And what I'll just add on what you said, the biggest problem to humanism we have today in Africa is we humanists ourselves. We are the people who are undermining the growth of humanism, because some of us have prioritized their own self-interest over humanism. And that's what making humanism not to grow, because there are some people outside there that have dedicated their whole life. Some people even dedicate almost 100% of their lives trying to advance these humanist values. But then we are being undermined by some few individuals here and there who are trying to fight us back from within. And so I think what I would leave the audience with is that as secularists, we need to unite, and we need to uphold transparency and accountability. That is the only way we are going to win against religion. Because even as we are saying that religion is a problem in Africa, look at those people. When you see Muslims, they are so much united that you cannot even fight them. And that's the only thing we are
Sure.
lacking here in Africa. But if we just stick together, I'm 100% sure these people, we even have some people who can, who are very influential, but they can't chip in to assist because they are, they are not seeing that unity. They are not convinced that if I invest in this cause, we are going to be
Sure.
successful. So let us just stick together. Let us collaborate. Let us take advantage of the networking that we have, because we are very lucky that today you can communicate with someone in Libya while you are in South Africa, someone who is in Somalia while you are in Nigeria. So let's take advantage of that. Let's unite
Definitely.
together and let's push for one agenda. That's the only way we are going to advance.
That's very important, Brian. Lynda, your conclusion on this?
I
Your parting
absolutely
shot.
agree. I absolutely agree with Brian. It's normalizing it. So even if people don't accept us, we are normalizing it. We are out there. You know, if someone if someone like we all were is doubting religion now, who have they got to turn to, really? We didn't have anything. We had to wait until the internet and find out. But we need to be able to have strong presence in our communities that people know, well, I'm going to go and meet these people and speak to them about what's happening, because I don't really trust this God thing anymore. But we're not out there enough, and we need to be, and it needs to be normalized. And we need to also get involved with our schools. That's where the most damage is taking place, is in the schools, with the biased education, religious-based education systems. No matter what you say, even in South Africa, it's very much, you know, Christian-based schooling still, despite what your constitutions and everything say.
Thank you so much, Lynda. Thank you so much, Brian. It has been a very nice show for me. I don't know about you.
I've
Very
enjoyed
good.
so well.
Yes, we shall be having another guest, probably from Nigeria,
Yes.
on the set next Saturday, and continue this conversation. We are going to continue with it for some time because we want to put humanism to the right place it must be.
Yes, definitely. And let people know about it. I just have to say, why didn't I meet you 25 years ago, Kato? I was living next door to you in Tanzania.
Yeah,
Could
I
have
wish we
met.
had met.
Oh, yeah, we could have had babies. We could have had a humanist family. We could have been a humanist power couple
Been a
in
very
East Africa.
humanist team for now. I'm happy for that.
I
Thank you
was
so
married
much.
to a Catholic. Oh,
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much, Lynda. And
okay,
see
guys.
you
Brian,
in the
it's
next
been
one.
great doing
Bye
the
bye.
first show with you.
Yes. It has been
Thanks
great
so
having
much.
all of
And
you
thanks,
guys.
Dennis, as well.
Then thank you for the program. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.